I didn't realize how damn loud silence could be until Tracy was gone. That first night without her, I stayed late at the garage, pretending to organize tools that didn't need organizing. The clock on the wall ticked so loud, it felt like it was punching holes through my chest. 40 days. That's how long it had been since the stroke took her. One minute we were eating dinner, the next I was calling 911, trying to remember how to breathe. My name's Jack. I'm 40 years old. I live in Coldwater, Kansas. I run an auto repair shop behind what used to be my wife's hardware store. Tracy used to sit right here, in this same metal folding chair across from mine. She'd sip coffee too late at night and ramble about whatever weird thing the UPS guy said that day. Didn't matter what she talked about. Her voice just made everything feel alive. I kept glancing over at the empty chair, hoping I'd see her kick off those beat-up sneakers, toss her legs up, and say something like, "You overcharged Mrs. Fenwick again, didn't you?" She always had jokes. Now it's just me. Me in this hollow-ass garage echoing like a tomb. We never had kids. God knows we tried. 10 years of tests, pills, and false hope. I remember one night she brought up adoption, kinda offhand, like she was floating the idea. I shot it down before she even finished the sentence. Told her I couldn't love someone else's kid like my own. Thought I was being honest. Now, sitting here with her gone, I wonder if I just didn't want to give my heart to someone new, in case it broke again. This place, the smells of oil and rubber, the clang of tools, even the damn crack in the floor we always tripped over. It's all ours. We built it from nothing when we had nothing. And now she's gone, and somehow I still show up here every day. Like maybe she'll walk in again and ask where I put the receipt book. I leaned back, rubbing my thumb over the edge of my coffee cup. Cold. Didn't even notice when it went cold. Then I looked up through the wide garage door. The sky was clear, black as oil, and right across it, just for a second, a single shooting star cut through the dark. I never made wishes on stuff like that. Always thought it was dumb. But that night, I made one. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and walked into the night. I walked straight home that night, straight past the quiet hardware store, straight into the kitchen we'd redone twice because Tracy could never settle on a damn backsplash. I sat down at the table and stared at the floor, thinking about how the hell we ended up in Coldwater in the first place. It was all one long chain of losses, really. Back in Wichita, I had my own detailing shop. Full service, spotless floors, good Yelp reviews, everything. I took pride in it. Worked 12-hour days, didn't complain. Then the market tanked and a chain car wash moved in 2 blocks over offering $10 details and free coffee. Within a year, I was out. Gone, done, bank account bleeding, tools pawned off one by one. Right when I was thinking we'd have to move in with my brother, Tracy got a call. Her uncle had passed. Heart attack in his sleep. Left her a busted-up hardware store and a crooked little house out in a town I'd never heard of. Coldwater. Population not even 2,000. We drove out that weekend to look. The place was a wreck. Roof sagging, dead vines strangling the front window. I remember saying, "Looks like the set of a horror movie." And she just grinned and said, "Then let's rewrite the script." So we did. The house came with a garage out back. Concrete slab, rusted shelves, roof solid enough. While Tracy scraped 20 years of grime off the store aisles, I patched the walls in the garage, bought a used lift off Craigslist, and built it up one job at a time. Oil changes turned into brake jobs. Brake jobs turned into full engine rebuilds. Word spread fast. Within a year, I had work booked 3 weeks out. We didn't make a fortune, but for once, we weren't drowning. People in Coldwater respected hard work, and they respected Tracy even more. She didn't just run that hardware store, she ran the whole damn street. Folks came in for screws and left with half a dozen tips on fixing their gutters or repairing drywall. She had that way about her. Warm, no nonsense, like she'd seen your whole soul and decided to help you anyway. I used to love watching her from the garage window. She'd stand behind the counter like she owned the world, tying her hair up with a pencil, calling me to bring in more light bulb packs or check someone's tire pressure. We were a team. We made sense. And then one night, she collapsed at the kitchen sink. Just dropped. Doctors said it was a stroke. One of those rare brainstem things, they told me, like I was supposed to take comfort in how unusual it was. She was gone before I could say goodbye. That was 40 days ago. Since then, the days just blur. I wake up, go to the shop, fix what's broken, hand over the keys, take the next job. People still nod at me on Main Street, still bring me pie, still say they're so sorry for my loss, like it's some bump in the road and not the crater I'm dragging around. I've got appointments lined up through winter, new tires, timing belts, even a transmission swap next week. It all pays the bills. But lately I find myself staring at the floor again, wondering what the hell I'm even doing this for now. It's not like I'm saving for a kid's college or a vacation. It's just me and a shop full of busted cars. I don't care about anymore. I wiped my hands on a rag that still had her handwriting on the corner. Jack's, in faded Sharpie. Tossed it in the bin. Then I grabbed the parts list for the next day and turned off the lights. I turned the lights back on the next morning and walked straight into Tracy's office without letting myself think about it. If I stopped to think, I wouldn't do it. The door stuck like it always had. I gave it a hard shove, and it popped open with that familiar squeal she kept meaning to fix. The smell hit me first. Her perfume was still in the air, faint, sweet, mixed with dust and old paper. It pissed me off how it was still here when she wasn't. The desk sat exactly how she left it. Same crooked lamp, same stack of invoices clipped together with a red binder clip, same coffee ring she never bothered to wipe up. I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. That was the deal I made with myself. No staring, no freezing up. Top drawer held the usual stuff. Pens, receipts, a half-used tube of hand lotion. Second drawer had her planner. I flipped it open without thinking. Her handwriting jumped off the page. Tight, slanted, confident. Supply orders, delivery dates, reminders to call vendors. She even had my dentist appointment written down in the margins like it was her responsibility. I swallowed hard and kept going. Under a pile of old purchase orders, I noticed something off. The bottom drawer didn't slide right. I tugged harder and felt resistance. Locked. That stopped me cold. Tracy didn't lock things, ever. I stood there staring at the drawer like it might start talking. Then I opened the top cabinet where she kept random junk, tape, old price tags, and a mason jar full of rubber bands. I dumped the jar out on the desk. Keys clinked against the wood. One small brass key sat at the bottom, taped to a faded label that just said office. My chest tightened. The key slid in easy. The lock clicked, sharp and final. Inside the drawer sat a thin blue journal. No title, no dust. Like it had been handled a lot. I picked it up and felt the worn cover under my thumb. My first instinct was to put it back and lock the drawer again. Some lines shouldn't be crossed. I knew that. Then I remembered every night she sat across from me in the garage, telling me everything about her day. Or so I thought. I opened the journal. The first entries were normal. Dates from years back, right after we moved. Notes about the store reopening. About me being stressed. About missing the city sometimes, but liking the quiet. It felt like reading her voice again, and for a second, I almost smiled. Then the tone shifted. Names showed up that didn't belong. One name, over and over. Austin. My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step. She wrote to him like he was right there. Not letters exactly, more like confessions. She talked about bumping into him before we left Wichita, about coffee that turned into long walks, about memories she thought she'd buried. I clenched my jaw and kept reading, even though every word felt like sandpaper. She wrote that he was her first love, that seeing him again shook her more than she expected, that she didn't act on it, not really. But the feeling scared her. Then I hit the last section. The handwriting got messier. Dates jumped forward, short entries, heavy ones. She wrote about a baby boy. I read it twice because my brain refused to process it. She'd been pregnant years before she met me. Gave birth. No family support. No money. The baby was placed into foster care. She never said his name, just my son. She wrote about checking on him from a distance, about the guilt, about telling herself it was better this way. And then the line that broke me. I never told Jack. I was afraid he'd see me differently, and I couldn't lose him too. My hands started shaking. I couldn't stop it. The words blurred. The office felt too small, too tight. Like the walls were closing in on me. A whole child, a whole life, kept from me. I stood up so fast the chair scraped backward and tipped over. The The journal slipped from my fingers and hit the floor with a dull thud. I backed away from it like it might bite me. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. The journal sat on the kitchen table all night like a live wire, but I didn't touch it again. Around 5 in the morning, I grabbed my keys and left. Didn't pack a bag, didn't call anyone, just drove. It was a 3-hour haul to the city. I don't remember most of it, just white lines, bad coffee, and the address from Tracy's last entry burned into my brain. Evan, Westview Group Home. The place sat on a quiet street behind a chain-link fence. Brick building, worn sign, tricycles on the lawn. Looked more like a daycare than anything. My boots crunched on gravel as I walked up to the front door, heart pounding like I was about to rob the place. Inside, a lady behind a counter glanced up from her computer. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, tight bun. She clocked me fast. Worn jeans, grease-stained jacket, bags under my eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked, polite but guarded. I cleared my throat. I think my wife used to send money here, for a boy. Evan." She narrowed her eyes. "Your wife? Tracy Langdon?" I shifted my weight, shoved my hands deep in my pockets. "She passed away. I just found out about Evan yesterday. I don't know how else to say this. I think he might be her son, which would make him mine too, sort of. I mean," I stopped. I was tanking this. The lady looked me over for a long second, then stood. "Wait here." I sat down in the plastic chair by the wall, heart in my throat. A few minutes later, a different woman came out. Older, gray curls, glasses on a chain, kind but serious face. "I'm Director Monroe," she said. "You're Jack?" I nodded. She sat across from me and folded her hands. "Tracy sent checks every month, always anonymous, but the return address matched yours. We always suspected it was someone close." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded again. "Evan's 6. He's recovering from heart surgery. Good kid. Smart. Quiet." She paused. "We were told his mother relinquished rights at birth. No other family ever came forward." "She never told me," I said. "I only found out yesterday. She wrote about him in a journal she kept locked up." Director Monroe studied me for a second, then reached into a folder. She pulled out a photo and slid it across the table. It was a school picture. Evan wore a striped shirt and had one front tooth missing. He wasn't smiling big, more like a half smirk, but his eyes lit up the same way Tracy's used to when she caught me sneaking a second piece of pie. My chest cracked open, just like that. I pointed at the picture. "That's him?" She nodded. I looked again. Couldn't stop. "He looks like her." She didn't argue. "I want to meet him," I said. "I understand, but we need to go through the right steps. There's paperwork, background checks. He's still a ward of the state." I nodded, barely hearing her. My head was already somewhere else, picturing this kid in the shop with me, handing me wrenches, asking questions. I didn't know a damn thing about being a dad, but that kid had my wife's eyes. That made him mine. Period. "I'll be back next week," I said. "With everything, paperwork, ID, whatever it takes." She raised a brow. "Adoption isn't easy, especially not like this. It'll take time. There are risks, emotional, legal." I cut her off. "I don't care. He's already mine." She leaned back a little and gave me a long look. Not the kind that doubts you, but the kind that measures whether you'll break when it gets hard. Then she smiled, just a little. "All right, Mr. Langdon. We'll start with the paperwork." I drove back to Coldwater that night with a folder on the passenger seat and one name bouncing around in my head like a prayer. Evan. I spent the next 2 weeks chasing paperwork like my life depended on it. Between the garage, the adoption process, and trying to understand how to be a dad overnight, I was running on fumes. Every night ended the same, sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by forms I didn't know how to fill out, zoning out with a beer going warm in my hand. Marlene kept me from going under. She showed up the morning after I got back from the city, holding a box of donuts and her old ledger. "You look like you slept in motor oil," she said, brushing past me into the office. "Let me see the books. And don't argue." I didn't, couldn't. She took over the finances like it was second nature, ran payroll, sorted invoices, even scheduled out a parts delivery I forgot I needed. She didn't ask for thanks, just poured us both coffee and got to work. And when I told her about Evan, about Tracy's journal, about the group home, all of it, she didn't flinch. "You're not crazy, Jack," she said, flipping through receipts. "You're doing what Tracy would have wanted. That kid deserves someone in his corner." The weight in my chest eased, just a little. For the first time since Tracy died, things started to feel possible. I cleared out a room at the house, bought bunk beds even though I didn't know if Evan liked to climb, ordered a set of books and puzzles. Marlene helped me open a savings account in Evan's name. It felt real. It felt like a life. Then the letter came. Plain white envelope, no return address. Postmarked out of Kansas City. Inside, one sheet of paper, typed, cold. It was from Austin. He'd recently been made aware of Evan's location. He was seeking immediate custody as Evan's biological father, said he had records proving paternity. He even had the nerve to mention Tracy by name, like he had any claim on her memory. I read the letter 3 times, jaw clenched so hard my teeth ached. Then I drove. Took me 5 hours to track him down. The address on the envelope belonged to some rundown duplex with peeling paint and a car on cinder blocks out front. I didn't knock. I pounded on the door. Austin answered in jeans and a faded Chiefs hoodie. Mid-40s, shaggy hair, smug, right out the gate. "You must be Jack," he said, arms crossed. "Been expecting you?" "You got a lot of nerve writing me like that," I said. "After all this time, you think you can just step in and claim him?" "He's my son," Austin said, like it was fact. "By blood. He's 6. You never showed up, never sent $1. Tracy did it all, and she didn't want you involved." "She reached out to me," he snapped. "We wrote letters for years. She wanted me to know him someday." "You had years. You did nothing." He shrugged. "I didn't know where he was until now, but now I do. So, yeah, I'm stepping in, because I can." I felt my fists tighten. "You think biology makes you a father? You think showing up with a lawyer and a blood test erases everything Tracy did to protect that boy?" Austin smirked. "You're just the mechanic. You think that's enough?" I stepped forward. "That kid's got no one else. No one but me. You can drag your smug ass into court, but I'll fight you every step of the way." He didn't respond, just closed the door like it was over, but it wasn't. The next morning, I drove straight to my lawyer's office in Dodge City, told him everything, handed over Tracy's journal, Evan's photo, even the check stubs she'd sent over the years. I filed for full custody. I didn't care if Austin had DNA. That boy had Tracy's eyes, and Tracy had trusted me with everything she couldn't carry anymore. He was my family, and no one was taking him from me. I had just finished closing up the garage when the call came in. Number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something in my gut told me to pick up. "Mr. Langdon?" It was Director Monroe. Her voice wasn't calm this time. It was clipped, panicked. "Evan's missing." My whole body went cold. "What the hell do you mean missing?" "He was in the rec room at 8. Staff checked again before dinner. Gone. No signs of forced entry, no calls, nothing. We've already contacted the police." I was already in my truck before she finished. "I'm on my way." I called Marlene with one hand on the wheel, barely able to speak. "He's gone," I said. "They lost him." "Oh my God. Jack, what can I do?" "Stay by your phone. I'll call you as soon as I know something." I drove through the night like a man possessed, burned through red lights. Didn't stop for gas until the tank lit up. Every minute Evan was out there, alone or worse, felt like a nail to the chest. When I got to Westview, the parking lot was lit up with cruisers, flashing lights, yellow tape across the sidewalk. I stormed inside. Director Monroe met me at the door. "We're doing everything we can?" "Save it," I snapped. "Who took him?" She didn't flinch. "Someone accessed his records earlier this week. We're still figuring out how, but it wasn't Austin." I stared at her. "What?" "It wasn't him. We checked. He's accounted for. Never left Kansas City." "Then who?" She hesitated. "A woman named Leslie, claims to be his birth mother." My mind stalled. "No, Tracy said she gave him up at birth. That's it. That's all she wrote." Monroe nodded. "We thought so too, but apparently one of Tracy's old friends, someone local, had her contact info. Told her Evan was recovering well, that he had a chance at a normal life now. So this woman just shows up and takes him?" She convinced a new temp she had legal rights, talked her way in. I had to lean against the wall to keep from dropping. "Where is she now?" Police traced her phone to a motel 20 minutes out. They're en route now. I turned on my heel and headed for the door. "Jack!" Monroe called after me. "Wait for them to do their job." I didn't. I drove like my soul was on fire. By the time I reached the motel, a cruiser was already out front, lights still on. I slammed the truck into park and ran toward the door. Cops were inside. I saw Evan through the window, sitting on the edge of the bed, pale and stiff, but alive. I stopped cold. My knees almost buckled. They walked him out a minute later. He saw me and ran straight into my chest. I caught him, held him so tight I thought we'd both break. He didn't cry, neither did I. We just stood there, heart to heart, like gravity had finally found us again. Leslie came out next, cuffed, head down. Couldn't even look at me. One of the cops said she'd tried to tell them Evan belonged to her, that she regretted giving him up, that she just wanted to fix it. Didn't matter. She was done. Back at the group home, Monroe signed over emergency custody while the paperwork caught up. I didn't let Evan out of my sight. That night, we stayed at a motel nearby. He wouldn't sleep unless the light stayed on. I didn't push it. He sat curled against me on the bed, quiet, one hand gripping the hem of my flannel like he was afraid I'd vanish too. Right before he dozed off, he looked up and whispered, "I'm glad you found me." I couldn't speak, just pulled him tighter and let the silence say the rest. I woke up with Evan still tucked against my side, breathing steady. First time in days I felt something close to peace. By the end of that week, the paperwork went through. It was official. I wasn't just helping anymore. I was Evan's father, my name on the forms, his on the mailbox. I stared at that little label longer than I probably should have. We settled into something like a routine. He didn't say much at first, just nodded or pointed, but he watched everything, followed me around the garage like my shadow. I'd catch him mimicking how I wiped my hands with a rag or how I squatted to check a tire. So I gave him a spot, cleared off the end of the workbench and built him a small stool, labeled a toolbox Evans with a Sharpie. First day I handed him a socket wrench. He looked up like I'd just handed him the keys to the world. "Can I do brakes?" he asked. I grinned. "We'll start with air filters." The customers loved him. Mr. Green gave him a peppermint every time he stopped by. Clara from the diner started bringing juice boxes with my coffee. Word got around fast. Jack's got a little helper now. Marlene showed up more too, sometimes with groceries, sometimes with books for Evan. Never made a big deal about it. She just filled the pantry and showed him how to sound out the word gasket like it was the most normal thing in the world. She had this way of talking to him, calm, soft, but not babying. He responded to it, trusted her quicker than he did anyone else. Honestly, I did too. One night we had her over for dinner, just meatloaf and boxed mac and cheese. Evan set the table like he'd done it 100 times. Halfway through the meal, he looked up and said, totally serious, "Why don't you just marry her already?" I damn near choked on my water. Marlene turned red and gave him a wide-eyed look. "Buddy," I said, clearing my throat, "that's not how dinner conversation usually goes." He shrugged. "You like her. She's here a lot." Marlene laughed, nervous, but didn't shut it down either. "Well, you don't waste time, do you?" We finished the meal, all of us a little red in the face. But it stuck with me. The idea. Later that night, after Evan passed out with his arms wrapped around that raggedy bear Monroe gave him, I stood in the hallway looking at the old photo of Tracy on our wedding day, still in the same frame she picked out, the glass a little cracked on the corner. I held it in both hands. She looked so happy in it, wind in her hair, eyes squinting from the sun. My chest didn't ache this time. It just felt warm. I whispered, "Thanks for everything, but it's time." Set the photo down and turned off the light. The next morning, I packed Evan into the truck and drove to the cemetery. He didn't ask questions, just clutched the little toy car in his hand. One of the ones he'd polished at the shop last week. Tracy's favorite color. Red. We parked at the edge of the grass and walked the short path in silence. The stone was simple. No flowers today. Just her name, the dates, and that still too fresh feeling like she'd only just left. I cleared my throat. "Hey, Trace." My voice cracked. Evan stood close beside me, holding the car with both hands like it was made of glass. "I brought someone," I said. "This is Evan. He's yours." I crouched next to the stone, my fingers brushing the edge. I read the journal, everything. I wish you told me, but I think I get why you didn't. Doesn't matter now. He's home. He's safe. Evan stepped forward without a word and placed the toy car at the base of the headstone. He didn't hesitate. For Mom, he said, clear and steady. My chest caved in. Not from grief, not exactly. It felt like something got released, something heavy that had been sitting on me for years without a name. I stood, pulled Evan into a hug, and let the tears fall. Not hard, not loud, just real. When we got back to the house, the sun was starting to dip. That soft gold light made everything look like it had purpose. Marlene was in the backyard, kneeling in the dirt with gloves on, pulling weeds from the little garden bed she'd started by the fence. She looked up and smiled, like we were exactly where we were supposed to be. I walked over and held out my hand. "Come with me," I said. She dusted off her knees and slipped her hand into mine without asking why. We walked out past the shed, through the overgrown edge of the property, until we reached the back corner. The grass was high, the ground uneven, but I could see it in my head clear as day. "I'm thinking about building something here," I said. "A greenhouse." She raised a brow. "Really?" "For Evan," I said. "He wants to grow things. Said so last week when we were changing the oil in that Camry. Told me he wanted to plant stuff, make it last. And I think maybe he needs that." Marlene didn't speak right away. She just looked at me with something soft in her eyes. Then she smiled and squeezed my hand. "I think that's a damn good idea." We stood there in the golden quiet. Evan's laugh broke through the air. He was chasing our mutt, Biscuit, across the field with his arms out like airplane wings. Dirt on his jeans, joy all over his face. I hadn't felt that sound, laughter, in this place for so long. It filled every crack. I looked back at the garden, the empty patch of land, and then at the woman next to me. Life still hurt, probably always would, but it was finally starting to grow in the right direction. I breathed deep and let it. 5 years later, the house was louder, happier, the kind of noise you don't realize you missed until it fills up every corner. Evan was 11 now, tall, sharp, quick with a joke. He helped me at the garage most afternoons, always dragging his school bag behind him like it weighed 100 pounds. I had him doing oil checks, tire rotations, and he could name every tool in the box blindfolded. The greenhouse was his idea. We built it with our own hands. What started as a patch of dirt out back turned into a full-on gardening shop. Customers came from 3 towns over for herbs, tomatoes, even custom planters. Business was good. Life was better. Marlene and I got married 2 years ago. She was 7 months pregnant now, waddling through the kitchen with that calm determination she carried everywhere. She still ran the books, still made sure I didn't forget birthdays, taxes, or dinner. That morning, Evan was up in the attic digging for old Halloween decorations when he came down holding a dusty box labeled in thick black marker, Tracy. "Can we look through it?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, kid, let's see what we got." We spread everything across the living room floor. Letters, receipts, a worn flannel shirt I hadn't seen in years. At the bottom was a photo, a young woman, Tracy, holding a baby wrapped in a hospital blanket. Evan stared at it for a long time. "Is that me?" he asked. I shook my head. "No, that's your mom's first son." He looked back at the photo, then at me. "Am I like him?" I rested my hand on his shoulder. "No, you're you, and you're mine." He didn't say anything, just turned and hugged me so hard my ribs cracked. That night, after dinner, we sat on the porch together. Sky wide open above us, stars just starting to break through the blue. The dog snored at our feet. Marlene's soft footsteps moved around inside the house. Evan leaned against my arm, quiet. "Hey, Dad," he said. "You ever make a wish on a star?" I smiled. "Once." "Did it come true?" I put my arm around his shoulders, pulled him close. "Yeah, just not the way I expected."